Welcome in to Instant Reaction in Indianapolis Colts podcast. I am Casey Vallier, joined by Ring of Honor wide receiver Bill Brooks, and we are reacting to, frankly, an ugly game, Bill. It was not the game the Colts were hoping here in preseason game number 2. I know the score doesn't really indicate what you're looking for when it comes to preseason. The score here was 34-6. The Falcons dominated from, really the opening jump. They created a 3-and-out, then they went down the field and scored, and that was kind of the way the rest of the game went. But I think outside of the score, I think this was a game where all three phases, as Shane Steichen alluded to following the game, it did not live up to the standards of what the Colts wanted to do. And that is not what you want to see on any given field, any given game. It doesn't matter whether it's a preseason game or regular season game. You want to have your principles. You want to come out and play Colts football, and the Colts did not do that today on the first time they're playing on Lucas Oil Stadium.
No, they did not. They did not come out and play that. Now, most of the first liners weren't playing.
Right.
So you have your second liners, your backup pieces playing, backup players playing, and you want those guys to step up. You want those guys to be able to step up and play like Colts football has played in the past.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those guys did not do that, and that's a concern because you want your depth pieces to be able to step up when needed. They're going to be needed sometime throughout the year because there are going to be injuries. So when those guys don't do it, it makes it very difficult to watch the game and make it very difficult to make an analysis. And also, you have to go back to the drawing board and make sure that, these guys are ready to play come the regular season. They have one more preseason game to get ready, and after that, regular season's on.
Yeah, we're right. It's right around the corner.
Yes.
It is almost here. And you mentioned that a lot of the ones didn't play. Looking at, I wouldn't say not necessarily like we know what the depth chart is going to be when week 1 rolls around on who the starters are. But we didn't see any of those guys, but also even guys like Akeem Davis-Gaither, who has been taking a lot of run, starting reps there at linebacker. He was the lone linebacker to not play. Drew Ogletree didn't play with a guy like Will Mallory out. So it was definitely a deeper look at this Colts roster here for preseason game number 2, which is to be expected, especially when you have a couple of joint practices like the Colts had this week with the Falcons. But I think when we talk about who played, who didn't play, one of the things that we knew we were going to talk about before the game was the quarterback battle. And that is something that is going to continue to be a topic of conversation until we know probably what that 53-man roster is and how we know definitively who is the backup quarterback. We saw a week ago in New England, Anthony Richardson got the start. He played the first half, and then Riley Leonard. That was flopped today, so Riley Leonard got the start today. And by all accounts, it was an up-and-down day is the way Shane Steichen described it. But his final total, 7 of 14 for 62 yards. It was about a 4-yard per attempt average. It was highlighted by the big play by Coleman Owen, which led, it was one catch for 39 yards that led all Colts receivers today in yardage. But more than half of his yards came on that one play, that one throw. So from Riley Leonard, as just strictly looking at it from a quarterback perspective in half number 1 against the Falcons, it was a rough outing for Riley.
It was a rough outing for Riley, and actually, to be honest with you, Riley's had 2 rough outings.
Yeah.
If you look at both the preseason games, he played in New England in the second half and came out in the first half today against Atlanta. And I think with Riley, seeing Riley last year, I think Riley played a lot looser. He was a guy that was, I don't want to say happy-go-lucky, but he just went out there and just played.
Yeah.
He played football because he enjoyed it. I think now that he's in the competition, he's gotten a little tight.
Yeah.
And I think he knows he's in competition, and he's trying to, at least earlier, he was trying to make plays to show that, I can make plays when need to make plays. And a lot of times when you do that, you're trying to force things.
Yeah.
You're trying to force a play. You're trying to manufacture a play instead of letting things come to you as a quarterback and just taking what the defense gives you. And I think right now Riley needs to get back to hey, I'm going to take what the defense gives me. I'm going to make the checkdowns that I need to make the checkdowns. I'm going to throw the underneath routes. And the coaches know that. The coaches know that, hey, if something down the field is not open, take the check down, take your second read or whoever or your third read, whatever it may be, and just let the coaches make the decision. But you can't force things because when you start forcing things, that's when bad things happen, unfortunately. So with Riley Leonard, I want to see Riley Leonard to continue just to say, okay, he's talked about this on an interview that, you know what, he's trying to let things go. He's trying to forget about things when bad plays happen, forget about things, and that he needs to try to do that a little bit better. Try to forget about things when bad things happen and go out and just make plays when he can. One of the things he did say earlier is that, you know what, this game was better than last game because he understood what was going on. He understood the defense that were being played against him, and he understood where he needed to go with the ball, which is great. That's a good step, good first step. Now he just needs to go out and execute those plays and get the ball where he needs to get the ball to as far as the receivers when they're open and make the right read.
So safe to say maybe play a little bit more free.
Yeah, bottom line.
And that's, I mean, frankly, that's a topic at all levels.
Yes.
I mean, there are times, I mean, I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old that play sports, and both of them, there's a lot of times I'm like, man, if you just go out and play and don't focus on what you're doing, you play better because you're not thinking, you're just going out and playing the game you love. For Riley Leonard, I mean, he's made these plays for years. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really well to put it. And, you know, looking at it from the perspective of Anthony Richardson, I think he had arguably his best stretch after New England into this previous week with the joint practices against Atlanta. It was all culminated by in that final joint practice on Thursday, that 2-minute drill that he was able to march the team down the field, get that field goal that in that game situation would have been a game winner. I think today it's hard to really judge what his game is based off statistics. He's just 3 of 9. But, I mean, there was that pass across the middle that would have been a completion on most days, but that was just a drop. So that one's kind of not on him. There was some scrambles that he had. I don't think the protection was perfect. But I think both quarterbacks can look at today and say there is a lot more that I can do, especially in Anthony Richardson's case, for sure.
Yes. Both of them could say that. In Anthony Richardson's case, there are things that, you know, some throws that I'm sure he wanted to make that, you know, behind the receiver.
Yep.
Or a little low that he needs to get up. And those are the throws that he has to make. Those throws that, you know, they should be easy for him. He's a very athletic individual. He has a strong arm. Everyone knows that. But for Anthony, it's making those easy throws.
Yeah.
Now, you saw some of that today, actually, in the game. There's a couple of throws on the outside that he took, got the ball back from the center, got ready, and just threw the ball. Just threw it. Just got his feet ready and set. Threw the ball. A couple of those plays. And those are the things he needs to do. He needs to be relaxed.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I've seen from Anthony this training camp is he has slowed things down. He has slowed things down as far as just trying to be more I don't want to say methodical, but just more deliberate out there. And with him doing that, it slows him down, and he's able to see the receiver, get the ball and get it out to the receiver and put it where the receiver is going to make the catch. And it's an easy throw, easy catch for him, easy catch for the receiver. So those are the things I think he needs to get back to doing, just making sure that, you know what, whenever I get on the field, I'm just going to be relaxed. I'm going to be a little bit more deliberate, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not too slow, too deliberate, where I'm not ready to throw the ball to the receivers in time. And I think if he does that, I think he'll be fine. You saw his athletic ability.
Oh, yeah.
He rolled out to the right. The guy almost sacked him.
I don't know how he didn't get that.
Yeah, he didn't get sacked. He got away from that, and he runs, and he makes a positive game, I think, about 4 yards down the field. So he has the athletic ability. Mm-hmm. It's just for him right now, it's just when you get in situations where you need to make the easy throw to complete those passes.
Yeah, and I think in large part of, this is kind of a two-part response to both the quarterback play. We talked about it a little bit on, locally our radio post-game show following the game, the stop-start nature that was the penalties.
Yes.
And that derailed at the start. You had the opening kickoff there's a penalty on the kickoff, so you think you're starting at the 30, and now you're brought back. And then the second kickoff, it's the same way. You have a big play, and it gets brought back. So I think part of that is a momentous thing for both quarterbacks. You're trying to get into a rhythm, and the penalties they add up, and they really just detour an entire drive. And then you're having to, you're looking at 3rd and 15, and you're backed up inside the 15. You're just trying to play the field position game. You're trying to make sure you don't take any more negatives, so you're running the football. So that's kind of a dead-ended drive. But I think also the offensive line. We didn't see any of the frontline guys, and I think one of the areas that Chris Ballard alluded to before training camp started was the battle of the backup center, who's going to be the guy behind Tanner Bortolini. And we saw Dalton Tucker taking a majority of those reps with the twos during the week. Well, today he didn't take any of that. So in some ways, I feel like maybe that is an indication on where Dalton Tucker is, that he may have won that spot. They're trying to get him some run at guard, get some other guys in there just to see what they have. But I think in large part the offensive line play today wasn't up to the standard as well, and that also kind of hinders the offensive play and output by the quarterbacks.
That definitely affects the quarterback. It definitely affects the offensive output that you have when your offensive line doesn't play as well as you think they should play. And when you have moving pieces in there, it makes it very difficult. Now, I understand why the coaches have those moving pieces. They want to see what guys can do. Plus, they also want to have the guys be ready that, they might have to go play those positions during the regular season if something happens during the game. So for those guys to have some versatility to put players in different spots, it's very important that they go out there and get in game situations and play those positions. But that does have an effect on the offense. It does have an effect on how the offense runs throughout the game. But as a athlete, as the quarterback, you're going to have bad plays.
Yep.
But you have to forget about those bad plays. You have to move on and just take the next play. I know it sounds, cliche-ish, and
yep.
and you have to go to the next play. But you actually have to do that. You really have to go on, because if you start dwelling on the previous bad play, that's just going to affect the next play. And it's just going to be contagious, and it's just going to be a snowball effect, and then you're never going to do anything right. So it's very important that you forget that play and move on to the next play. Now, after the game's over, if you want to think about that play, those bad plays, you think about those bad plays, and hopefully you kind of correct the mistakes. But you have to be one of those individuals that you have amnesia, forget about it, and just move on.
Now, one of the things that's going to be interesting to see what the Colts do over the next couple weeks here is at wide receiver. We knew that there was the battle for that quote-unquote third wide receiver role. And it was a battle prior to this week between guys like Ashton Dulin, Laquan Treadwell, Nick Westbrook-Akine. Then the Colts signed Keenan Allen. And I think now you can safely say that the core group of receivers, you've got Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Keenan Allen, and Ashton Dulin, because of what Dulin does in the return or special teams game, and then also what he offers in the offense. When you think about the rest of those receivers, because there's still a handful of them. You've got Laquan Treadwell, Nick Westbrook-Akine, who have had, both of them, really good training camps. They've made a lot of plays. They have been active. So you think about both of those guys. But then also in that return game, guys like Anthony Gould, Coleman Owen. We saw Deion Burks have a big area in the return game. I'm not asking you to tell me what the roster and depth chart is going to look like. I'm not asking you to tell me the amount of receivers that they take.
Well, if you did that, I would have to ask for a pay raise. All right.
Well played. Well, and then I would rebuttal with that I have no – if it was up to me, I would give you everything you need, Bill, because I know how well you do of your job. I would give you all the money in the world, but that is above my pay grade to offer said pay raise to you. But essentially what I'm talking about is you look at the return game, and I think that's where you maybe have three guys that might be specialized in their role for the team, those being Coleman Owen, Anthony Gould, and now Deion Burks. And then you think about how many other receivers you can keep. And that game gets interesting. So I think the 5 guys to watch over the next couple weeks is going to be Laquan Treadwell, Nick Westbrook-Akine, as far as the offensive part of that receiver goes, and then we're in the return game with Burks, Gould, and Owen.
Yeah, I think you're right on there, Casey. And you talk about pretty much we have 4 of them, 4 receivers in regards to the whole group that we say that's going to be your core group.
Yep.
Your Ashton Dulin, your Josh Down, Alec Pierce, and Keenan Allen. For the most part, that's going to be your group. After that, your 5th, 6th, or 7th receiver, they're coming from that other group: Laquan Treadwell, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Deion Burks, Anthony Gould. Coming from that group, those guys are going to have to show what they do on special teams.
Right.
Okay. So we know Anthony Gould. He's been dinged up. He's not been out there, but he's the punt returner. You got Coleman Owen, who returned punts as well, and you got Deion Burks, who returned kickoffs. You got Laquan Treadwell, who plays on special teams, kickoff and punt, and you also have Nick Westbrook-Akine. Haven't seen him play special teams yet, but I think he did play some special teams early on in his career.
Yeah.
So those guys that right now are participating on the special teams, that's where you're going to have to make a decision on which of those guys are you going to keep that play special teams that's going to be able to contribute offensively. As you said, I think Nick Westbrook-Akine has had a consistent camp, a very good camp. I think Laquan Treadwell has done some nice things and played well, uses big body to make some tough catches. Some catches at joint practice the other day. He made a catch in the end zone, nice low catch. So those players have made plays offensively, but they're going to have to do something on the special teams to cement their position on this roster.
Absolutely. Well, we are reacting to a 34-6 preseason game number 2 defeat for the Colts. They fall to the Falcons. We've talked a lot of offense. I want to flip over defensively. And as I mentioned, 34-6, there were a lot of early and often the Falcons were able to do a lot of what they wanted to do offensively. If you think about it, 5 of the first 6 possessions they scored on, 4 of those being touchdowns. At that spot, and that led us to halftime. And at that spot, there was just one incompletion between both of the quarterbacks that we saw suit up for the Falcons. So, like we've mentioned, these are not the frontline guys, but depth is always key throughout every NFL season. You are always tested. There are injuries always. So, how much of a concern is what we saw defensively here today with the Colts allowing 34 points to the Falcons, and ultimately that final drive for the Falcons where they took 3 kneels to end the game, they were inside the 10, so they would have added more points if they wanted to keep their foot on the pedal.
Yeah, it's very concerning to me as far as the way the defense played, and I'm gonna go to one position specifically, and that's going to be the secondary. I think those guys that play, I think Mekhi Blackman, unfortunately, didn't have another good game. Had another pass interference call against him. And, you have Edwards as well. Didn't have a great game. One play he got beat down the field in regards, made a nice throw, nice catch, but he got beat deep. So I think that is a concern, knowing that, yes, Sauce Gardner, Travarius Ward, Justin Wally, frontline guys more than likely. But as we've talked about before, and we'll talk about it all year long, those guys that are backups, they're going to have to step up eventually and play, because guys are going to get nicked up for a series, a game or 2, and they're going to have to step up. So that is that's very concerning to me in regards to those guys haven't played that well, didn't play that well today, and moving forward, you're going to have to make sure those guys are up to speed so they can be the guys that step in there when they need to.
And Shane Steichen was asked about the lack of pass rush that the Colts have shown now kind of through the first 2 preseason games. Now, like we said, the frontline guys are not out there. We aren't seeing Leatu Latu, Arden Key, DeForest Buckner. But there has been, a lot of time for quarterbacks. We saw that very evident today Shane Steichen doesn't seem too worried, but that once again is an area we were hoping to see guys like Caden Curry and George Gums Jr. be able to kind of bounce off what they did a week ago, and I don't know necessarily that they made as big of an impact here in preseason game number 2 as what you are hoping to see as we talk about. I mean, they completed 78% of their passes today, the Falcons being. So that was an area it all kind of goes together. You talk about secondary, but I think pass rush is also a big part of that.
Yeah, we didn't see a lot of pressure on the quarterback today from our defense against the Atlanta Falcons, and that's also concerning because you want to see those guys step up, and especially last week, some of the young guys had some good games. They played well. They did a nice job. You saw Keenan Curry just have a motor and play, make some plays out there against the New England Patriots. Maybe didn't make as many plays today,
right.
Unfortunately, but you know what? Sometimes that's going to happen. But you want to see those guys see how do they handle success, and I wanted to see how they step up against the Falcons today. They have some things to work on, some things to get better, to see how they can bounce back. But that happens in the football game.
Yeah.
Those sometimes you're not going to have each week have a great game.
Right.
You're not bouncing back. Sometimes it's going to be a little tough for you, but it is concerning. Again, those guys didn't step up. You wanted to see that, and the Colts did not play to their standard, especially on defense, and that was something that they hopefully will address moving forward, but it is concerning.
All right. Well, one final thing here on the game before we kind of move forward into the preview of next week as the Lions come in to wrap up the preseason game a week from Saturday as we're recording this, so a week from today. We saw another good performance out of Spencer Schrader.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kicking battle that started prior to training camp. We knew it was going to be a battle between he and Blake Grupe. And I think, arguably we could have said 2 weeks ago that Blake Grupe was kind of the leader in the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've seen now Spencer Schrader. He's perfect as far as field goals go during the preseason, knocking down 61, 48, I think another 48-yarder today and a 53-yarder. So you think about that. Spencer Schrader has really answered the bell. And today we saw the first kind of hiccup out of Blake Grupe as he missed, I'm not going to say a chip shot field goal, but 36 yards. Typically, when Blake Grupe goes out there, under 50, he hasn't missed in a Colts uniform. So that one was kind of the first hiccup we've seen. So this kicking battle continues to heat up. It continues to be top of mind. How do you see, how are you grading the way this is going? Because you got practice, you got the games. I know you're not making this decision. That's once again back to that comment. I'd have to pay you more money, and I don't have money to offer you. But this battle, it's going to go down to the wire. And again today, Spencer Schrader adding, it's all about stacking days. He continues to stack days. And I think it's going to be really important to see what Blake Grupe does this coming week to bounce back after missing one today.
Yeah, you look at today's performance. You look at Spencer Schrader stacking a day, again, another game day from last week's game day where he hit that 61-yarder.
Yep.
And you want to see that. You want to see especially a guy coming back from an injury. He was dinged up a little bit, came back, made a 61-yarder. He has confidence, building that confidence within himself, comes here, makes a 48, a 53-yarder. He feels good about himself.
Yep.
So he's playing with confidence, and that's what you want to see. You want to see his mental makeup, how he's handling things right now. And right now he's had the confidence that, he can probably make any kick that he has to make if they put him out there. As far as Grupe is, during training camp, during practices, he's been making all the kicks.
Yes,
I mean, he's been making all making deep kicks as well,
Yeah.
and the ball has been flying off of his foot. So he has confidence in what he's doing.
Yep.
I'm not saying he doesn't have confidence in what he's doing, but it's interesting to see. Now what you're going to have to see is how does Blake Grupe bounce back from the miss today? How does he do it? How does actually Spencer Schrader handle the success he's had? If we talked about earlier with the young guys, how does he handle success that he's had thus far in the games? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the week of practice next week, but more importantly, what happens in the game. And as we mentioned before, Brian Mason is going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
I don't know, how he weighs practices against joint practices, against games. I don't know how he does that. Is he going to take in consideration kickoffs
Yeah.
or it's just going to be field goals. So it's going to be interesting to see how he makes that decision moving forward. And as we've said before, whoever he decides on that's going to be the kicker for the Indianapolis Colts, I'm pretty sure that other kicker is
Oh,
going
yeah.
to get picked up very quickly after he's released from the team.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, and I don't know this. It's not like somebody told me that of other GMs because they aren't talking to me, first of all, but they didn't tell me this. But I really do feel like other teams that are maybe not 100% certain on their kicker, they're watching this going, well, we're just going to claim whatever guy doesn't make the Colts team. And I think that's how good these two kickers have been.
Yep.
So I really do think that you were spot on. I think we're going to see both these guys kicking, one of them for the Colts and one of them for another team here in 2026.
They'll both be employed in 2026
Absolutely.
in the NFL. Yep.
Now, that's going to put a bow on our reaction to today's game. Now, one thing before we close out the show, we've got one more preseason game. It's a week from today as the Detroit Lions come into town. They have closed out the training camp portion out at Grand Park. So everything comes back to the complex. This week is going to be a little bit more like a simulated game week for the players, kind of getting, especially the young guys, into that routine and rhythm of how a normal NFL week will go. So when you look at what this team has done, we might see a little bit more of those frontline players in the game next week against the Lions. What are you looking for next week? And is there anything from those frontline guys you want to see before Baltimore? I guess, that's where we are, before Baltimore comes into town in a little over a couple weeks.
Well, you want to see, of course, execution. I want to see execution and consistency out there on the football field. Those are the two things I want to see, and I want to see guys make plays out there, both the frontliners and the guys that get some the depth pieces that get some play as well. I want to see how they do. I want to see how the quarterbacks, the backup quarterbacks, Riley Leonard, AR, and Easton Stick plays as well.
Yeah.
I want to see how those guys do, how they perform. It's going to be very important for those guys to perform well. So it gives coaches some confidence that, if something does happen, I can feel comfortable putting those guys in. And then you want to see how the young guys respond to going through what will be a similar it will be a game week similar to what they'll get once the regular season starts. Yeah. So how they respond to the practices, how they respond to the meetings, how they respond to when they come out here. Because it's going to be very important for those guys to start getting into the mind or the framework and the mindset that, this is a game week. We're about to approach our first regular season game, that we need to get ready for that and go out there and perform. And it's going to be a big opportunity for a lot of guys that are on the fence.
Yeah.
To get ready to play and to kind of make a name for themselves so that they can hopefully make the team and be a part of the Indianapolis Colts, because it's last week. If they don't do it this week, they're not going to do it. So it's very important for them to go out there and perform to show the coaches that they're worthy of being on this team.
Now, I'm going to ask you to do something that I did not tell you before the show, that we were going to do this, and I apologize, Bill. But it just came to me. This is something that you just talked about that you dealt with. You're a former player. You're a guy who was a late-round pick. You're trying to fight and claw for everything. How big of a change was that? No, there's nobody around.
Okay,
I promise.
all right.
This is a layup, I promise.
Okay.
How much of a change was that going from training camp into game week? How much of a change is that mentally? Because not saying that camp is like, this is the fun part or whatever. I'm not at all saying that, because camp is important and you have a routine and but this is kind of that change. This is where, for a lot of these young guys, now it's time we're mentally preparing. We're starting to prepare for Baltimore. We are game planning. How much of a change was that for you?
To be honest with you, Casey, for me it wasn't a change, because my mindset was, I haven't made the team yet.
Okay.
I still have to go out and make the team. So I'm still performing to try to make the team. They're giving me stuff that, okay, we're preparing for whoever our last preseason game was. And having a game week type of practice, I wasn't thinking like that. To me, it was just another practice. I have to perform out there so I can make the team. That was my mindset going into that last week. So maybe I just wasn't smart enough to understand that we were going into a game where, the coach was giving us a game week style of preparation. I was just say, hey, look, okay, this is what we got to do. This is what I got to do on the practice field. That's what I'm
Sounds
going to
good.
do.
I'll do it.
I'll do it. So that's fine. So I just prepared like, what?
Gotcha.
I got to try to make this team. Then once I made the team and then we got to maybe week 2 or week 3, then I started saying, okay, now I can start focus on team we're getting ready to play.
Okay. Well, it fell flat. Sorry for whoever commented that question. I saw it come up. They wanted to know. Now we have the answer. I'm just kidding. There was no comment or anything. That came out from me. I mean, this is why I shouldn't go off cuff. I shouldn't go off script.
It's fine.
I mess everything up. My bad. Darn it.
No, let's go off cuff. It makes it a little interesting. But I was worried, though, because I didn't know if someone was coming from behind me. I don't know, because I was a little worried about that case.
I wouldn't do that. Well, I will say this is off script. It's not written down here, but man, it's great to be back inside Lucas Oil Stadium.
It's awesome.
Oh, I love it.
This is a great stadium. This is one of the greatest stadiums in the National Football League.
It's
awesome. It's great to be back with football, and then it's going to be even better once the fans get in here. And it's going to be sold out, and all the noise and all the game presentation stuff that goes on here. I'm really looking forward to the first regular season game.
Absolutely. Well, it's just right around the corner. We've got one more game inside Lucas Oil Stadium that will be the final preseason game as the Detroit Lions come to town next week. And then, like you said, the Baltimore Ravens will make their trip here to open up the 2026 campaign. But that's going to do it for Instant Reaction. For Bill Brooks, I'm Casey Vallier. The Colts fall in preseason game number 2 to the Atlanta Falcons. Final score 34-6. But as we mentioned before, score doesn't really matter. But today, it was kind of an ugly game. We'll see if the Colts can bounce back in preseason game number 3 as we wrap everything up. But we will be back following that game next Saturday. Hope you come out and join us at Lucas Oil Stadium. But this has been Instant Reaction, an Indianapolis Colts podcast.